The room went quiet before anyone realized why. 1 second there was noise everywhere. Kids laughing too loud, parents whispering encouragement, judges calling out numbers, the hum of lights above. Then something shifted, like air being pulled out of a space. Like everyone felt it at the same time. Heads turned, smiles faded, and a silence fell that felt heavy, uncomfortable, wrong. It started with the sound of heels, sharp, confident, measured. Each step cut through the noise like a blade. Click, click, click. She didn't rush. She didn't need to. She moved like someone who had never been told no in a room like this. Tall, polished, beautiful in the way magazines teach people to admire. Her blazer fit perfectly. Her hair didn't move out of place. She carried authority the way some people carry a purse, casually, like it belonged to her. She stopped in front of one table, a small table, metal legs, scratched surface, a little crooked compared to the others. Behind it stood a skinny black boy, maybe 12, maybe 13, too big hoodie, sleeves pulled down over his hands. His badge hung slightly sideways on his chest, like it had been clipped on in a hurry that morning. His eyes were bright, nervous, hopeful, tired. On the table sat his project. No glossy banner, no expensive screen-looping animations, just wires taped carefully into place, handwritten labels in black marker, a small box with a soft hum coming from inside it, steady and calm like a heartbeat. It wasn't loud, it didn't demand attention, but it worked. The woman tilted her head slightly, like she was confused by what she was seeing. Her lips pressed together. Not a smile, not a frown, something colder. She didn't lower her voice. "Whose child is this?" The words echoed farther than she probably meant them to, or maybe exactly as far as she wanted. The boy froze. Not the kind of freeze you practice. Not brave, not strong. The kind where your body forgets what to do. His shoulders stiffened. His hands stopped moving. His breath caught halfway in. Around them, conversations slowed. Parents nearby pretended to adjust bags or read pamphlets, but their eyes flicked over. A judge walking past paused, one foot still in the air before he slowly set it down. The boy looked up at her. She was close, too close. He had to tilt his head back to meet her eyes. "Yes?" he said. Or maybe he tried to. It came out thin, almost swallowed by the room. She leaned in just enough to read the badge on his chest. Her eyes scanned it quickly. Name, school, category. She nodded once, like she'd found what she expected. "This expo is for qualified participants," she said, her voice calm and sharp at the same time. "Not experiments." That pause mattered. That word choice mattered. Experiments, not projects, not work. Experiments, like he was the thing being tested. A few parents looked down at the floor. One mother pulled her child a little closer to her side. Another man cleared his throat but didn't speak. The boy felt his face heat up. He swallowed hard. His mouth was dry. His heart started beating faster, louder, like it was trying to escape his chest. "I qualified," he whispered. He hated how small his voice sounded. He hated that he had to push the words out. "My teacher signed the forms. I checked in." He reached into his pocket without thinking, fingers brushing against folded papers he'd checked 3 times that morning. Permission slips, entry forms, proof. She didn't let him finish. "You don't belong here," she said. The words were flat, final, like a door closing. "Security will escort you out." It felt like being slapped without being touched. The boy flinched, just a little, enough for people to notice. Some kids stared openly now, wide-eyed, confused. Others turned away fast, like if they didn't look, it wouldn't be real. A boy at the next table pretended to rearrange his display, his hands shaking. A girl bit her lip and said nothing. No one spoke up. The judges didn't move. The boy looked down, at the wires he had soldered late at night while his mom slept on the couch after double shifts. At the notes written in pencil and erased so many times the paper was thin. At the tiny burn mark on his finger from when he'd messed up and tried again anyway. At the dream he carried quietly into that room because he'd learned early not to make noise about hope. This was supposed to be his moment. He had imagined it. Standing here, explaining his idea, watching judges nod, calling his mom afterward, trying to sound calm even though his voice would shake with pride. Instead, humiliation stood inches from his face. Perfect hair, perfect smile, absolute power. The sound of footsteps approached from behind, heavy ones, A security guard, tall and broad, moving with purpose because he'd been told to. The boy's chest tightened. He thought about his mom's voice that morning. "Just do your best," she'd said. "No matter what happens, I'm proud of you." He thought about how much the bus ride cost, how he'd packed his lunch to save money, how he'd practiced explaining his project to the mirror because no one else had time. The guard stopped a few feet away. The woman didn't look back. She didn't need to. The boy reached for the edge of the table. His fingers curled around the cold metal. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know who to ask for help. He felt small in a way that went beyond his size, small like the room had decided he didn't matter. "I can pack up," he said softly. It wasn't surrender, it was survival. He bent down to unplug the power cord from the outlet strip beneath the table. That's when the machine reacted. At first, it was just a change in the hum, a shift in tone, higher, sharper. The small light on the side flickered once, then twice. The boy froze again, this time for a different reason. The light glowed steady. A low tone filled the space around the table, not loud enough to be disruptive, but clear enough to be noticed. Data numbers began to scroll across the small screen he'd built from salvaged parts. The security guard hesitated. The woman frowned, just a slight crease between her eyebrows. "What is that?" she asked. The boy straightened slowly. His heart was still racing, but something else pushed through the fear. Instinct, habit, the part of him that knew his project better than his own reflection. It's supposed to do that," he said. The hum grew stronger. The screen refreshed. Lines of information moved across it, steady and alive. A judge nearby turned fully now. He stepped closer, squinting at the display. Another judge followed. Then another. The woman crossed her arms, irritation creeping into her posture. "This is not the time for—" "Actually," one judge said, holding up a hand, "what exactly is it doing?" The boy hesitated. He looked at the woman, at the guard, at the judges, at the faces around him. He wiped his eyes quickly with his sleeve, embarrassed by the tears he hadn't realized were there. "It measures environmental radiation shifts," he said. His voice was still soft, but steadier now. "In real time. It alerts when levels change suddenly." The judge leaned closer. "Did you design the sensor yourself?" "Yes, sir." The room leaned in. The woman took a step back without meaning to. Just one. The boy stood there, hands at his sides, heart pounding, unaware that this moment, this exact moment, was about to change everything. And the machine kept humming. The security guard stopped a few feet away from the table. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, eyes moving between the woman and the boy. He had been trained to follow instructions, not feelings, but something about the scene felt off. The boy was small, too small to look dangerous, too small to deserve this kind of attention. The guard hesitated just for a second. The woman noticed. She didn't look at him directly. She didn't need to. She lifted her hand and waved him forward like you'd wave away smoke. Dismissive. Certain. "This is not a charity event," she said sharply, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. "Rules matter." Her voice cut through the quiet like glass breaking. The boy flinched. His throat tightened. He tried to speak again, even though his body was telling him to stop, to disappear, to shrink until he wasn't a problem anymore. "I followed every rule," he said. His voice cracked halfway through the sentence. He hated that part. He hated that his voice betrayed him before he could finish. "I signed up. I checked in. I did everything they said." The woman let out a short laugh, not loud, not wild, just one small sound, controlled, polite, cruel. "Sweetheart," she said, tilting her head, "sometimes rules aren't enough." That word sat heavy in the air. Sometimes. As if there were invisible rules written just for people like him. Rules he'd never been taught but was still expected to obey. The boy looked around without meaning to. He scanned the room, searching for a face he knew. His teacher should have been there by now, she had promised, but traffic was bad. Or maybe she was stuck with another student. His mom was at work, her phone locked away in a locker while she cleaned offices she'd never see the inside of during the day. He was alone. The judge closest to them cleared his throat. The sound was loud in the silence. The boy felt a flicker of hope rise in his chest, but the judge didn't say anything. He adjusted his glasses, looked down at his clipboard, took one step back. Parents nearby leaned toward each other and whispered. Their voices were low, careful, like they didn't want to be caught choosing sides. A camera that had been pointed toward the boy's table slowly turned away, its lens settling on a safer project, a less uncomfortable story. The woman leaned closer now. Her voice dropped, softer, almost kind. The kind of voice people used when they wanted to sound reasonable while doing something unreasonable. "You should be grateful you were even allowed in," she said. "Now pack up." Grateful. The word burned. The boy nodded before he realized he was doing it. His body moved on its own. He knelt slowly in front of the table, the cold floor pressing through the thin fabric of his jeans. His hands shook as he reached for the power cord. Every movement felt heavier than the last, like the air itself had weight. He could feel eyes on him, not angry eyes, not kind ones either, watching eyes. This wasn't just about a Science Expo anymore. Somewhere between her laugh and the judge's silence, it had turned into something else, something deeper. It was about who was believed without proof and who needed proof just to stand still. About who was protected by the room and who the room was willing to sacrifice to keep things smooth. Disposable. That word floated through his mind even though no one said it out loud. His fingers wrapped around the plug. He pulled gently. The machine responded instantly. A steady tone filled the space beneath the table. Not an alarm, not panic, just a low hum that refused to stop. Calm, persistent, alive. The boy froze. The hum continued. The woman straightened. Her brows pulled together. "What is that?" she asked. The security guard looked down. The judges looked over. People leaned closer without realizing it. The boy stood back up slowly, his heart hammered against his ribs. He hadn't planned this. He hadn't wanted attention like this. But the machine didn't care about fear or timing. It did what it was built to do. It's supposed to do that," he said. The hum grew a little louder. The small light on the side of the device blinked, then stayed on. The screen flickered to life, numbers scrolling in neat rows. Lines of data moved across it like a language only he fully understood. The display board lights flickered once, twice. A judge turned fully toward the table now. He stepped closer, bending at the waist to see the screen better. Another judge joined him, then another. The crowd shifted, drawn by curiosity they hadn't planned to feel. The woman crossed her arms. Her jaw tightened. "This is not the time for—" "What exactly is it measuring?" one of the judges asked, cutting her off. The boy wiped his eyes with his sleeve. He hadn't noticed the tears until they blurred the screen. He sniffed once, embarrassed, and then spoke, barely audible at first. "It measures environmental radiation shifts," he said, "in real time." The words came easier once he started. He knew this part. He had lived inside this idea for months. "It uses a low-cost sensor I built from recycled parts," he continued, "a little stronger now. It tracks sudden changes and alerts when levels spike." The room leaned in. A judge pointed at the screen. "These numbers, are these current?" "Yes, sir." Another judge frowned. "That's odd. The building's monitors show stable readings." The boy hesitated. Then he nodded. "That's why I built it," he said. "The public data doesn't always catch short spikes, especially in older buildings." Silence settled again. But this time it was different. Heavier, sharper, focused. The woman laughed again, but it didn't sound the same this time. It was tight, forced. "This is not relevant," she said. "We're discussing eligibility." One of the judges straightened. He didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on the device. "Actually," he said slowly, "this might be very relevant." Another judge checked his phone. A third scribbled notes on his clipboard. The boy stood still, unsure what to do with his hands. His heart was still racing, but something else had joined it now. Not confidence, not yet. Just the sense that the ground under his feet might not collapse after all. The security guard took a step back. The woman noticed. Her arms tightened across her chest. "This is exactly what I mean," she said. "This is turning into a distraction." The judge finally looked at her. His expression was calm, but there was something firm behind it. With respect, he said, "Innovation often is—" The hum continued. Numbers kept scrolling. Parents murmured. Cameras slowly turned back. The boy felt every stare, but for the first time they didn't feel like weight. They felt like attention, like possibility, like the room had paused long enough to actually see him. He swallowed. He knew this moment could still turn against him. He knew how fast doors could close, how quickly people could decide he was a problem again. The woman shifted her stance, her heels clicking as she repositioned herself closer to the judges. "We have a schedule to keep," she said. "We can't bend standards because a child built something noisy." The word child landed differently now. The judge didn't answer right away. He watched the screen, watched the data update, watched the boy stand there, shoulders squared despite everything. Finally, he spoke. "Actually," he said, his voice calm and clear, "this is exactly the time." The room held its breath, and the boy didn't know yet whether those words meant rescue or another kind of fall. The judges didn't plan to surround the table. It just happened. One by one, they stepped closer, pulled by curiosity they couldn't ignore anymore. Clipboards lowered, pens stopped moving. The circle tightened, not in threat, but in focus, in attention. The kind of attention the boy had never been given in rooms like this. He stood there, right in the middle of it, feeling his heart pound against his ribs. A few minutes ago, he had been preparing to unplug everything and disappear. Now, every pair of important eyes in the room was on him. It felt unreal, like the room had flipped upside down and he was the only one standing still. Questions came fast. "What algorithm did you use to clean the signal?" one judge asked, leaning in. "How accurate is the sensor at low levels?" Another cut in. A third didn't bother with small talk. "Did you design this alone?" The boy took a breath. This time his voice didn't crack. He answered every one, quietly, clearly, one thought at a time. He explained how the algorithm wasn't fancy, just layered, simple checks stacked on top of each other to catch sudden changes. He explained how accuracy came from repetition, not cost, how he tested the sensor again and again, comparing it to public data, learning where it failed, and fixing it. He nodded when they asked if he worked alone. "Yes, sir," he said. "I didn't have anyone else." No apology in his voice. No pride either. Just truth. The screen kept updating as he spoke. Numbers rolled by in neat lines, colors shifted slightly with every new reading. This wasn't a slideshow. This wasn't a mock-up. It was alive. One judge frowned and tapped his tablet. "These readings don't match the building report," he said. Another judge checked her phone. "They're close," she replied slowly, "but not exact." The boy swallowed, then pointed to the corner of the screen. "That's the delay," he said. "The building system averages over time. Mine catches spikes right when they happen." A pause followed, a long one. The meaning of that settled slowly like dust in sunlight. A flaw, not in his work, in the building itself. A flaw no one else had caught. The room buzzed, not with noise but with realization. Parents leaned forward. Kids stopped whispering. Even the security guard straightened, eyes locked on the screen. The woman's smile was gone now, completely. She stood stiffly at the edge of the circle, arms crossed, weight shifting from one foot to the other. For the first time since she entered the room, she didn't look certain. She didn't look powerful. She looked like someone watching controls slip through her fingers. One judge stepped away from the table and pulled out his phone. He turned his back slightly, lowering his voice but not enough to hide the urgency. Another judge stayed close and looked at the boy again. "Explain it from the beginning," he said, louder this time, "so everyone can hear." The boy glanced around, at the parents, at the kids, at the woman, at the judges. Then he nodded. He raised his voice just enough to carry. He talked about his neighborhood, about the old buildings, about how people got sick and no one could explain why, about how the data never seemed to line up with what people felt in their bodies. He talked about curiosity turning into frustration, frustration turning into work, late nights, cheap parts, free lessons online, mistakes that taught him more than success ever could. Parents leaned in. Kids stared with wide eyes. A boy his age whispered, "That's crazy," like he was watching a superhero origin story. When the boy finished, the room didn't clap. It didn't cheer. It just stayed quiet. One judge broke the silence. "This design," he said slowly, "could change how schools monitor environmental exposure." The words landed hard. The boy blinked. He hadn't thought that far. Not once. His world had been small, focused, local. "I just wanted to help my neighborhood," he said. "We get sick a lot." That was all he said. Silence returned. But it wasn't the kind that shamed him. It was heavy with respect. The head judge stepped forward now. He adjusted his jacket, glanced once at the screen, then looked straight at the boy. "This project," he said clearly, "will be submitted directly to the National Science Foundation." For a split second, the room didn't react. Then the gasps came, sharp, loud, uncontrolled. Parents covered their mouths. Kids whispered excitedly. Someone laughed in disbelief. The boy's ears rang. His heart skipped, then raced so fast he felt dizzy. The woman opened her mouth. Nothing came out. No protest, no correction, no authority left to lean on. History wasn't just being made, it was being made by the kid she tried to erase. The award ceremony felt different from the moment people took their seats. The air was quieter. Not nervous quiet like before. Something deeper. Something settled. Like the room itself had learned a lesson and was still thinking about it. Programs rustled softly. Parents sat straighter. Judges exchanged looks that said more than words ever could. The boy stood near the side of the stage with the other finalists. His hands were clasped together in front of him. His shoulders were still a little tense, like his body hadn't caught up with what his mind was starting to believe. He kept checking the floor beneath his feet, half expecting it to disappear. Moments like this had never been built for him. He had learned that early. The announcer cleared his throat. A name was called. Applause. A kid walked up. A trophy was handed over. Smiles, photos. Then another name. More applause, more flashes. The boy swallowed. His heart beat so loud he was sure the people around him could hear it. He thought about his mom. About how she'd probably be wiping her hands on her uniform right now, checking her phone on break, hoping for a message. He thought about the wires on his project table. The solder burns. The nights he fell asleep on his notes. Then the announcer said his name. For half a second, nothing happened. Then the room stood. Not just clapping, standing. Applause thundered, rolling through the hall like a wave that wouldn't stop. Cameras flashed from every angle. The sound was overwhelming. It wrapped around him, lifted him, held him up when his legs felt weak. He looked around, stunned. He didn't move right away. It felt like the moment might vanish if he rushed it. Like it was fragile, like glass. Then he took his first step, slowly. Each step toward the stage felt unreal, like he was walking through someone else's dream. The lights were bright, too bright. He could barely see faces, just shapes and motion and sound. His ears rang. His chest felt tight and open at the same time. He climbed the steps carefully. One hand brushed the railing, just to be sure. The applause didn't fade when he reached the center. It grew. The judges smiled at him now. Real smiles, the kind that reached their eyes. One of them nodded just once, like a quiet apology for earlier. Another wiped his glasses before handing over the award, his hand shaking slightly. The boy took it with both hands. It was heavier than he expected. The woman stood in the back of the room. No blazer commanding attention now. No sharp steps. She didn't stand when the applause started. She stayed seated for a moment, then slowly rose when she realized everyone else already had. She clapped softly, twice, then stopped. She watched, smaller, quieter. The weight of her certainty had collapsed, and she didn't know where to put it anymore. The boy stood at the microphone. He looked out over the crowd, over parents holding phones, over kids staring like he'd done something impossible, over judges who had learned something new today. He opened his mouth to speak. Nothing came out. He laughed once, nervous, honest. "I didn't think this would happen," he said. His voice carried clear and simple. "I just wanted to fix something. That was all." The applause came back, softer this time, warmer. After the ceremony, the room buzzed with conversation. People moved in clusters. Parents congratulated strangers. Kids talked over each other, excited, inspired, louder than they'd been all day. The boy stood near his table again, holding the award carefully, like it might break. A judge spoke to him about next steps. A reporter asked his name. Someone asked for a photo. Then the woman approached. He saw her before she spoke. Her shadow crossed the floor. He looked up. She stopped a few feet away, unsure. Her posture was stiff. Her hands were clasped together, knuckles white. "I may have been mistaken," she said. The words sounded practiced, like they'd been repeated, in her head on the walk over. Still, they didn't land softly. They never do. The boy looked at her, calm, steady. "I know," he replied. That was it. No anger, no raised voice. No need to explain, just truth. She nodded once, like she'd been dismissed, and for the first time she didn't argue. She turned and walked away, her heels quieter now. That night the video spread. A clip of the moment, the device humming, the judges leaning in, the announcement. Millions of views by morning. Comments poured in, messages from people who saw themselves in him. People who had been told no for reasons they were never allowed to question. Weeks later, emails arrived. Universities, research groups, mentors, people who wanted to help him build, grow, learn. Years later, his work changed policy. New standards, better monitoring, safer buildings. But none of that was the most important part. The most important moment had already passed. It was the moment a room full of people learned something old and universal. Power often speaks loudly. Dignity speaks last. And when people try to push someone out of history before it's written, they sometimes end up standing in the footnotes of a story that changed everything. Because greatness doesn't ask permission, it proves itself.